So thanks for joining us today. My name is Desi, and Michael is joining us, and we have a special guest as well. Caitlin is here. So we'll be three on this webinar today, and as you all know, the webinar is about animatics, and it's about creating animatics. And the way we structure these webinars is that Michael, who's our star trainer here, who's really traveled around the world in his season and worked at Disney and all these really cool places, really is a wealth of knowledge. So today he's going to give us a great little overview about why it's important to create an animatic, how to create an animatic, and hopefully you'll gauge some really interesting information and get the juices going basically. So throughout this webinar, if you do have any questions, please type them into the question field on the right side of the menu. We will reserve the last 15, maybe 20 minutes for questions throughout the webinar. If anything comes up, just mention it. And also, lastly, all these webinars are recorded, and then they're uploaded to our website at toonboom.com/webinars. And you'll be able to find them all online. So that's really great. It's a great resource. You guys can tap into it. We really try to help our users. So that's that there. And also, just so you all know, we are going to have more storyboard webinars next week. So you can always check into the website, see what's scheduled for the month of May and the month of June. And lastly, if we don't get to your question or something comes up, you can always email us at webinars@toonboom.com, and somebody will definitely get back to you within a short delay of time. So without any further delay, here's Michael. Michael is wearing Storyboard Pro t-shirt today, so he's really into it. So thanks again, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here, and happy Friday the 13th. Okay, so we are in Storyboard Pro here. I just want to make sure I'm recording, and I am, and that's great. So you will have access to this afterwards. So some of you might be familiar with the interface of Storyboard Pro, and some of you might not be. So I'll just do a quick review of that before we get into the animatic process. So this area here is your camera or stage view. The difference being in the camera view, you will actually see what is going to export in your final animatic. Over on the left side, you have access to information about your panel, tool properties for your different tools that we're going to use. And at the bottom, I have open a timeline view, and I can also switch to the thumbnail view. Now, the difference between timeline view and thumbnail view is pretty clear in the name, timeline. So the timeline actually has timing information, and that's what we want to access when we're creating our animatic. And that really makes me want to ask the question and then answer the question, which is, what is an animatic, and what makes it different from just a regular group of storyboard panels? So an animatic is the filmed version of the story panels with timing. Okay, so that's really important. In the earlier days, it was called a story reel. Now it's called an animatic, and in Europe, it's also called a Leica reel. And it can, or sometimes does not have, element animation, so movement of different layers within the panels, and it can also have camera movement. But the main thing about an animatic is that it's a film version of your story panels with timing built into it. So with that, what we have here is a project, a storyboard project that was created at Toon Boom by one of our wonderful artists, Genevieve. And this is quite a long project, but I wanted to focus in on a particular part of it from this point to this point. So it's two scenes, and it's a character reacting to what another character has said. He says a little bit of dialogue, and then he stands up, exit the scene, and then in the next shot, he's walking along, trips, and falls. Okay, so I'm just going to play this this little part here.
Okay, I'm going.
Let me turn up the volume.
Okay, I'm going. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the little segment that we're going to be focusing in on here and creating our animatic. So this this sequence here of these two shots is already in animatic form because it has timing elements, meaning that some of the panels are longer and some are shorter. So that gives variety of timing. And it also has character movement. You see that here, this character moving across the background environment. And it also has camera movement as the camera is falling with him. And there's also a camera shake here. So these are some of the elements that go into an animatic along with this sound, which we have in our sound layers. So we'll talk about how to import that as well. So since the project has sound, that's going to affect the timing that we're going to want to put into our animatic. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the project that just has the information that we want. I'm just going to focus in on those two specific shots. Here they are in a new scene, a new file. Okay, so and in this project, I have taken out all of the variety and the timing, and I've taken out the camera movement, and I've taken out the layer movement, so we can do all this together and see how all these elements get put together in order to create the timeline. To create the animatic. So before we start changing our timing around, let's import the sound. So if we look over here in our panel, okay, this is the information for our panels. We have in the second panel, there is some dialogue here. This is called a caption box. All these are called caption boxes, and each panel has its own set of caption boxes. So we want to go and get this dialogue file, audio file, and import it into our project. So the way that we're going to do that is to click on the sound layer, right click, and go to import sound clips. Let's try that again from here. Sound files. Okay, so I'm going to find that piece of dialogue that I want. Okay, so I actually have two sound files, and I'm going to import both of those by clicking on open. And I can choose where I want these to appear on my timeline. So either at the current soundtrack or a new soundtrack, at the first frame or the current frame. So I'll just say at the first frame and click on OK. So I've got both of my sound files here. One of them is for the audio of the character saying his line. So I'm just going to play through that.
Okay, I'm going.
All right, so we know that that audio needs to match up with the second panel. Before I move this into the right place, I need to do a little bit of sound editing. So I'm just going to put my cursor over the place where I want to cut off this sound segment. I right click and I go to split the clip at the current frame. Now I select the piece that I want to edit out and I just push on delete and there it goes. It's gone. I go to scrub over here with my playhead to the end of that bit of dialogue. Do the same thing, right click, split clip at current frame, and select the other piece, and it's gone. So this is a really nice thing about Storyboard Pro is that you can not only import sound, but you can also edit it, clip it down to the size that you need, and you can also play around a bit with the volume level by putting in little keyframe control points that you can move around to create fade in, fade out, etc. I won't do that for this one, but just so you know about it. Okay, so I'm going to position the sound here near where he's in the gesture for that piece of dialogue.
Okay, I'm going.
Okay. So that works pretty well, but I think I'm going to adjust this panel a little bit longer to match that sound clip better. So this is how you start creating your animatic, is by changing the timing of your panels relative to each other. When I open this file, all of the panels were 1 second long. So by default, all panels, when you add a new panel, are 1 second long. Of course, we want to have variety in the timing of our animatic. So that's how we change the timing, is by clicking on the edge of a panel, left click, hold down the left mouse, and just drag out to the length that you want to have. Now as well, I can shorten this one to give even a little bit more contrast. And you'll notice that the sound file followed along when I moved this one, when I made that one shorter. This follows because it matches up with the beginning of the second panel. So working on an animatic is really it's a back and forth process of making changes, doing a preview, see how it looks, make more changes, and continually like that. So if I drag my playhead all the way back, I can go up here and click on play, my play arrow, and
Okay, I'm going.
and see how it's looking. I haven't adjusted this part here, so I mainly want to focus in on this first part.
Okay, I'm going.
And I think so far that looks pretty good. Let's go back over here and get our other piece of audio. And this piece of audio matches up with this panel where this character, Terrence is his name, he makes a sound because the spaceship that they're in has been jolted, and he's going to make this slight.
Okay.
Move the playhead.
Okay, I'm going.
That's right. Okay, I'll move it back a little bit. I'm going to clip it. I'm just going to go ahead and clip this. That's actually the best thing to do before I move it around. I split it, delete the part I don't need, go to the end of where there's a waveform, and I want to clip that off. So right click, split clip again, and delete that. Now I'm going to match this up with this panel.
Yeah.
That works pretty well. So I've got my two sound files starting to match up with my panels. You see that I'm making my panels appear smaller and larger. You can zoom in and out of your timeline just like you can zoom in and out of your camera view using the 1 and 2 keys. So those are really important shortcut keys. one thing I just want to take a little side trip to show you something important is that when you want to play your animatic, which you'll be doing a lot as you're editing it and getting it the way you want it, instead of going up to the play button all the time, you can also go into your preferences and under shortcuts, if you do a search for play, there is, by default, there is not a keyboard shortcut for play. So what I did is that I selected play just by clicking on it, and then I went to this box here and I typed in the, I'm not sure what this key is called, but it's just to the left of the number 1. There's a thing above it called a tilde, which is a little thing that goes over ends in Spanish to make that ñ sound. So I use that button as my hotkey to play because it's very convenient. I can just push on that hotkey instead of always going up and clicking on the blue arrow. So I like to set hotkeys. You might, if you do. I think that's one you'll probably appreciate. Okay. So as we were saying, you change the timing of your panel by dragging on the edge of each panel, but there's another way to adjust the timing, and that is in your panel view. That's here on the right side. There, where it says duration, that's referring to the duration of that particular panel. So panel 3 in scene 10. So I can set the length of my panel in that box. So if I type in 2 seconds, I can do it that way. Some people like to do it manually, dragging on the edges of the panels. Some people like to be more kind of precise and type in values, but it's good to know that you can do that from 2 different places. Okay, so next I'm going to continue editing the timing here. And after he says his bit of dialogue,
Okay, I'm going.
That seems a little bit slow. This panel here where he gets up and then also where he exits, it's a bit slow. So I'm going to just drag that, make it shorter, and maybe take this other one, make it shorter as well. I'll make this one slightly longer because it's kind of an anticipation for his exiting. And I'm just going to now try that out as well.
Okay, I'm going. Yep.
That feels pretty good, but I'm just going to make this slightly longer. Now let's move on to the next panel and the next action where the character is moving. So now we get to the part of creating an animatic where we add layer animation. So any layer in your panel, you can set animation keyframes on that. Before we do that, let's just review what we've done so far. So far we've imported the sound, we've edited the sound, and we've started changing the duration of our panels from both the timeline by dragging on the edges of the panels and also from the panel view by typing in the values. And we've also set a hotkey for the play function. Okay, so now we've got layer animation. This is where animatics have really gotten sophisticated in the last few years thanks to Storyboard Pro because we've made it so easy to add movement to your element layers. So the first thing we want to do is select the panel, that's this one, and then we want to activate what's called the transform tool, layer transform. So anytime that you want to create layer movement on a layer, you want to select the layer element, select the transform tool, and then it's kind of small here, but there's a little gray man standing here, in just a straight standing pose, and he's getting ready to be animated. So when we click on the little gray man, he becomes yellow and active. So that means that I've just set a keyframe on my element, on my character, at this particular frame in my timeline. And you can see the little blue diamond is representing my keyframe. And I can drag that diamond, move it around to change the timing of where that pose is. And I'm also going to move my character I'll move him back slightly. So this is his starting position. So I can turn my camera mask on and off. So this icon here allows me to see exactly what is going to export at the finish when I finish my animatic. So you can turn that on and off to see the entire character and turn it back on to see your framing. Okay, so what I want to do here is to set a keyframe at the starting position. I'm going to move him back a bit. And then I'm going to move forward in the timeline to the position where I want him to move to. So I need to set another keyframe. So in the tool properties where it says keyframes, this plus KF button is how I add a keyframe at this particular frame in my timeline. There you can see, there's my next keyframe. So now all I'm going to do here is drag the arrow to control the character and move him sideways like that. And you can see here that the little orange line is showing the path of movement from the first position to the second position. And when I scrub my playhead, that's the little red bar here, when I scrub that, then I can see the movement of my character. Now I want to make sure that he's going to line up with his position in the next panel where he's here. So I'm going to turn my camera mask back on. And he's back a little bit, or he's a little bit too much forward. So I'm just going to move him back slightly so that there's continuity with the next panel. Okay, so I've got my character moving within my animatic. And the next thing that I want to add is some camera movement. Okay, so I want the camera to be more or less following my character, and then I'm going to put in a little bit of a camera shake as the spaceship is getting jolted and he's getting thrown off balance and going into this funny fall position. So to set camera keyframes, you select the panel where you want to start, and instead of the transform tool, you choose the tool just below that on the left, which is the camera tool. Okay, so that's to set camera keyframes. And what I see when I turn on my camera tool is a black bounding box around my frame with a square here in the corner and a dot here in the center. This black outline represents my static camera. So this is important because even if I don't want to add a camera movement, I can change my camera framing. I can recompose my shot within this scene just by repositioning my static camera. So instead of moving elements around, I can just move my static camera. But I want to have an actual camera movement, so I need to add the element of camera keyframes. So to do that, I'm going to go up again to the tool properties, just as I did with the layer movement. And where it says camera transform, I want to add a keyframe at the beginning of my current panel. So I click there. There is the symbol for my keyframe, the blue diamond. And you'll notice the blue diamond above the thumbnail is my camera keyframes. The blue diamond below is my layer keyframes. Okay, so I've got my camera position, and you notice that the controller for my camera has changed from a black outline to a green outline. The green represents my first camera position. Now I'm going to go over here back to my tool properties, click on the second camera keyframe, which is going to be at the end here. And it's in the same position as in the first one, so I need to select it. Becomes red. Red is the color for the last camera position. And I'm just going to drag it and move it over slightly. So I've just got a very slight camera movement going on while the character is moving. Now I could set camera keyframes between these. I'm not limited to a camera keyframe at the first and last frames of my panel. I can also move just by dragging. I can move my camera keyframes so that maybe I want the camera to start moving after the beginning of the panel. So there's a little bit of delay, and then the camera starts moving. So you've got a lot of creative freedom for where you place the camera and when you have the camera move, and also how many camera keyframes you include. So where we're going to add more camera keyframes is after this one here. And I'm going to drag this camera keyframe over a bit. I'm going to back. Okay. And I'm going to add a little bit of a camera shake. So I'm going to add another keyframe. I'm just going to move the camera back slightly. Going to move forward a few more frames. Add another camera frame. Move the camera forward slightly. And I can preview this just by scrubbing. You can see my camera shake. Go to the next keyframe, or move a little bit ahead, put in another keyframe, move the camera back again, and I've got the idea of a camera shake, and then he falls out. I think I'm going to adjust the length of this panel slightly and have him start making his audible sound a little bit before the fall, just to anticipate it a little bit. So let's preview that and see how that looks. So I'm going to push on my camera.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going.
Okay, so we've got a difference now in the variety, the length of our panels. That's really important for creating your animatic. Just like in animation, you want to have variety in timing. You want to have variety also in the duration of your panels in your animatic. I'm going to make this one slightly shorter, and I'm going to make the final one a little bit longer, because that gives us a few more frames to enjoy the after laugh of when he falls. So I've added layer movement, camera movement, and so the last thing that we want to do is to export the movie of our animatic. So to do that, I'm going to go up to File, Export, Movie. And I've already selected the destination. So you want to, first thing you want to do is choose the folder where you want your animatic movie to land. Create a name for it. Call this. And I'm going to choose the QuickTime movie file format. I'll choose maybe, let's go full size. Full size, so you have the option of, if you're just doing really quick, rough versions, you can choose a smaller size for your export, which if you're exporting a large project, an animatic, a large project, it can save you some time. And I can also choose my export range. So I'm going to choose all. And if I wanted to, I'm not going to, but I could burn in the time code. So as the animatic is playing, I would see the seconds going by as in one of those digital clocks. And I could also print in scene names, panel numbers, and you also have the option to include project safeties and camera safety reference. So these are all cool ways that you can, what's the word? Sorry, customize, there it is. Cool ways that you can customize your export. So I've chosen my parameters. I'm going to export it, and I've asked it to open the document. After the export, and we wait. We have a lot of questions?
Tons.
Oh gosh.
Tons.
Okay, well, we're wrapping up here, and then we can get to questions. So,
because you're doing such a great job.
Oh, well, great. I'm happy. Okay, so I'm just going to play this, and let's see how the timing looks and if there's anything that might need to be adjusted.
Okay, I'm going. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not bad, but I think I might just change a few little things, and this is how the process goes. You keep making little changes until you get it just the way you want it. So I'm just going to expand that a little bit. I thought this one was a little bit too long. I won't keep making changes. I'm just going to do this once. I save my project, and now I'm going to export it one more time just to see if I like it better this way. And I'm going to keep all the same parameters. Export is asking me if I want to overwrite the previous one, and I do. So overwrite. So let's see if this looks a little bit better.
Okay, I'm going. Yeah.
Okay, I like that a little bit better. Faster, I always think a little bit, if in doubt, make it a little bit faster. So that looks fine. So we've done our export, and we've created basically a filmed, timed out version of our story panels. In this case, with some animation of one of the elements and some camera movement. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and that you see really how easy and enjoyable it is to add these elements to your project to create a dynamic animatic. So thanks.
Wow, so that's really interesting. Like, there's just so much here that you've covered, and we're going to get to some really interesting questions. But there's so many reasons why animatics are so important. They're so important in our industry, in the animation industry, because we use them for pitching, and we use them really to present our ideas, right? What's your take on doing animatics for pitching and basically you know, being able to present your idea to a room full of executives at Disney, if you're lucky, or, you know, a broadcaster, or any feedback?
Yeah, well, I think it's crucial. When I was at Disney, I was in the animation department, but I remember attending some story pitches.
Right.
At that time, it was much more
manual.
Someone standing in front of a wall full of their drawings and pointing with a stick, actually pointing to the drawings and kind of acting out the story as they were pointing to each drawing. And it's really changed now in that it's much more accurate representation now of what you're going to get when you have your finished product.
Right.
And why it's so important is because you really have to get it nailed down at this stage before you go into production.
Right.
Because if you don't, and then you have all kinds of changes and retakes after you get into animation, it's a lot more expensive. Time is a lot more expensive. So this tool is so important because you're really locking down everything. It's in terms of timing and how elements are interacting in time, and then you get it approved, and then you move on to the production stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thanks for answering that question for sure. So we do have some really good questions early on. Patrice sent in a really interesting question. It's a bit long, so bear with me. But I think this could be interesting in terms of a learning tool. So the question is, if I import a PNG in 3D view mode, if I rotate an image in one axis, the image is fine, but I turn it on the other side axis, the border is switched in white. Is there a way to avoid this border edge issue problem? Is it a bug fix? It could actually be a bug fix. Eh?
I'm trying to visualize that. I think for us to really understand their question, maybe if they could send us an email with a screenshot of that. Then,
that would be helpful.
Yeah, but just hearing it, it's hard to say.
Yeah, so Patrice.
Good question.
Yeah, great question, Patrice. It could be a bug fix. It could be a really quick switch. So send us an email at webinars@toonboom.com, or you'll go into your emails. We may have sent you an email. Just reply back to that, and we'll look right into it. Michael will probably be the one answering your email anyhow.
I look forward to getting your email.
Yeah, he's basically support sometimes as well. Don wants to know, can the sound clip overlap from the previous panel and the following panel?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so as you see here, this sound clip that I'm pointing to is extending over 3 different panels, so you can absolutely overlap them.
Good.
And that's what you want to do, because you don't want things to change on exactly the same frame. You want to have a bit of overlap. So that's really a good question.
So Jeff wants to know, after setting a first keyframe from character movement, does moving the playhead in the timeline and repositioning the character automatically create a second or B keyframe?
Yes, it will. If you have the transform tool selected and the layer of the character or whatever element selected, and you move the playhead, maybe not. I know that, well, okay, let me just delete these keyframes here real quick, turn animation back on, and so if I move ahead here and I move the character, let's just see. So yes, it does. Create it automatically.
Cool. Alex wants to know, is there any feature to swap drawings as you would in harmony with lip syncing, or is that strictly done with panels?
You could, yes. If you have, for example, a character, you can break the character up into different layers in your panel, and then you can have different mouths that you could switch between. I think that should work. I'd have to try it out, but I think it should be workable.
Okay, cool. Here's another question. If you needed to have a smooth camera movement across multiple panels and keep a fluid BG pan, or for example, if the subject had multiple key reactions, how would you approach this? So, do you want me to read the question again?
Just the first part.
If you needed to have a smooth camera movement across multiple panels and keep the fluid BG pan, for example, if the subject had multiple key reactions, how would you approach this? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, for example, this camera here is moving across multiple panels, and I could extend this camera movement across all these panels where different things are happening, and you can see the camera path. Okay, so I go to my I'd have to look into that more. If they could maybe send me an email and ask about that again.
Jeff,
I'll answer an email.
Jeff is the one who sent us that question, so Jeff, please send us an email and we'll definitely get back to you. Here's another question from Dawn. Are there preset motions for camera movements? If not, can camera movements be saved as presets?
Wow, that's a good one.
I don't know. I don't think anybody's
that's a great question. There are, as far as I know, there are no preset camera movements that come with the software. And I don't believe that you can. I think they're asking, for example, if you could save camera positions in a kind of a library. And I believe the answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kelly's just wondering if there is a quick answer as far as going from Storyboard then into Harmony Animate. So basically, how difficult is it? What's the transition?
Okay, so when you want to export to Toon Boom Animate, you just go to File, Export to Toon Boom, and you would choose your format, Animate, and you have the choice to choose either a rendered animatic, which will give you a flattened image for each frame, so it's an image sequence, flattened images, or you can choose to export the original scene, which will export all of your layers for each panel. And when you do that export, it will generate a animate file that you then tell it where to export, and then you find that file, and then you open it, animate, and you just basically start animating on a new layer on top of your animatic.
Cool.
So it's easy. That is the most smooth pipeline. All the pipelines from Storyboard Pro to FBX to Toon Boom to editing softwares, they're all smooth. But of course, because Harmony and Storyboard Pro are the same Toon Boom family, that is a very, very smooth transition.
Cool. Rodrigo, how can one optimize the playback speed?
Well, I'm not sure what he means by optimize, but when you set up your project, you set up your frames per second. So, I mean, the standard, as far as I'm pretty sure, the it's 24 frames per second, but you can change that in your project resolution. either when you set up your project or as you're working, you can also go into your project properties and change the frame rate here. So again, I did that by going to Storyboard Properties.
Cool.
And project resolution.
Okay. So that's going to be...
So it's better to do it at the beginning when you set up your project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many layers of audio can you have?
Infinite.
Infinite?
Infinite is...
The world is yours?
Yes. Just keep creating audio layers until you can't do it anymore.
Until you're exhausted.
And the way you do it, by the way, is you click on the current sound layer, right-click, and then just say New Audio Track. And then you can do it again, New Audio Track, and you just keep going. By the way, audio tracks can be independently muted, and they can also be locked, just so you make sure you don't move anything around after you've set up your audio.
Right. This is Tom is asking another question. So, what is the interface for adjusting the volume of the audio? So, where do we go to adjust the volume?
You go directly to the sound clip in the timeline, and right now we see the waveform, and we see this kind of light aqua colored line here. That's the volume.
Yeah.
The volume right now is the same volume all the way across. If I want to make changes, like put in a fade in, for example, I just hold down Alt and click on that line.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe click here again.
Mm-hmm.
Drag this one down. So I'm setting that to no volume, setting this one to regular volume. So from this frame to this frame, I'm going to have a fade in. To show what that sounds like.
Okay, I'm going.
It's subtle, but it started out low and
Right.
then got higher. And I could also, for example, put in another keyframe and do a fade out at the end of the clip.
Interesting.
So it's very convenient, super convenient.
Okay. Another question. Can you output the movie as a PNG sequence to place it into After Effects? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. You can export
it
into many
connection
formats.
lost.
Eh?
It says connection with GoToMeeting lost.
Oh, you lost your connection? That's not good.
Your network connection has been established.
Okay. Sorry. It's just
I hope we're here.
Hope you can hear us. Let us know if you see anything. We may have lost our connection for a couple seconds. Okay, so yeah, you can export in many different formats. Can you have, in terms of files, file size for exporting an animatic, can you adjust your file size? Like, let's say you wanted something like really quick, just to email it off to someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I have no audio.
Can you guys hear us?
I see bars in the audio. We should
It's
be
back. Okay.
Okay. We're back. Hello. Yeah. So yes, when you
file
export your movie, you do have the option for the resolution. So if you're working on you want a quick preview, you can do quarter size, and then when you have it locked down and you want to do your animatic movie export for presentation, then you would go to full size.
Matthias, I hope I pronounced that right, wants to know, can you set the play range if you work with a longer film and you want to work with just a section or a part of it? You can pick your...
Range. I believe you can. I've never done it, but I'm quite sure you can. If he wants to email me with that,
Yeah.
I'll send him a description of how to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So we'll send you a longer. Sometimes we can answer all your questions are a bit longer. So email us and we'll definitely respond to you via email. So here's another question. I would also love to know the main advantages of using Storyboard Pro and why not make a storyboard directly on Harmony 12, for example.
Well, I mean, Harmony is it's an animation software. It's designed specifically to make animation. I mean, you can also animate with Storyboard Pro if you really wanted to. You could set keyframes on any layer in any frame, but they're designed, you know, for specific purposes. Storyboard Pro has tools that Harmony doesn't. You know, for example, showing the panels, being able to switch between timeline and thumbnail view. I mean, I think you could, but I just think because Storyboard Pro has been developed over the last 9 years, and it's been almost perfected or quite close to perfected.
Close, for sure.
So you can do a lot of things in different softwares, but I think it's a matter of going with something that is really tailored for what you specifically need to do. You know, another example is all the different views that you have in Storyboard Pro. For example, the horizontal workspace where you can look at and work on thumbnail versions of your panels, and you have access to your captions. I mean, you don't have any of this in Harmony, so you'd be kind of working around to make it work for you, which maybe you could make it work, but this is the industry standard, and there's a reason for that. And I would say it's definitely worth it for these and many other reasons.
Nice. So because we were experiencing some audio issues before, maybe you can just go over what we were talking about earlier in terms of volume adjustment. Can you just show us the functionality again? Maybe just go into a little bit more, because we do have some time. And
of course.
We'll make it through all the questions.
Absolutely. So back in my timeline view, okay. By the way, you probably noticed that I'm adjusting the proportion of my timeline just by clicking here at the sort of the border between areas and dragging. So that's really a convenient customization of your interface. So what I did here is I'll go over to the other one just to show it again. So right now my volume is completely even. The level of my volume is completely even. By the way, if you don't see your volume line, you can right-click on your sound clip and click on Show Volume. And if you don't see your waveform, you can right-click and say Show Waveform. All right. So now let's say I want to create a fade in or ease into this sound. If I put my cursor over the audio and I hold down the Option or Alt key on Mac, it's Option, on PC it's Alt, and I create a little control box. Then I click maybe over here again and I create another control box. And I just simply drag this one down. So I'm decreasing, you can see the decibels going down. I'm decreasing the volume, so it's transitioning from the volume practically being off to being at the normal volume here. So that's a fade in. And I could put in more and create little accents of sound. You can put in as many as you want.
Cool. So in the interest of time, we're not going to have very much time for questions. We only have about 6 minutes left. Jeff is asking, and it might be a complicated question for you, but here we are. Are there any advanced tools for editing, such as a rolling edit tool, where adding a keyframe in one panel subtracts from the following panel? The advantage of being to not expand the overall duration of the scene. I'm not sure that's
yes. Yeah. So there is a when you adjust the length of a panel, so let's say I'm going to make this panel longer, it's changing the overall length of that entire scene. So the scene is the panels connected by this black border. These next panels are a different scene and they have a different border. If I want to expand that panel but maintain the length of the overall shot, I hold down on the Alt or Option key, and when I move it, you see that proportionally it's changing that panel relative to the one next to it. It's not changing the length of my shot. And if I could do the same thing at the next panel. So that is how you do that.
Interesting. So, we have 4 more minutes. I feel like it's always the final countdown. We really try to, optimize time because we know people are at work and watching these sometimes. Kelly wants to know, thank you very much for this webinar. I found it timely for the project I'm currently working on, which is on my desk. Please consider perhaps a webinar bringing together this animate harmony, as I have little success, quite possibly, because I'm just not doing things correctly. It seems to me like the start over when I go to Storyboard to animate, it seems to me like a start over. That's what she's saying. Especially when identifying scenes in Storyboard. Not sure how Animate handles that, as I never have been able to get it to translate. So Kelly, really that's great feedback, and I really appreciate that from a marketing perspective. If you want to send us a full-length email with that, maybe just copy-paste that information into an email. I will be sure to send that off to the right people internally, and maybe we can somehow help you because, maybe the problem is something that we just haven't noticed before. Now, also, sadly, I have to tell you, we stopped development on Animate. We don't animate, we don't distribute, sell, or really talk about Animate anymore because we rolled in those features into a version of Harmony, which is Harmony 12 right now. As you know, there are 3 versions: Essentials, Advanced, and Premium. That being said, that doesn't mean we're not going to help you with your problem. So email us at webinars@toonboom.com, and we'll definitely do our very best to either get support to answer your email, or at the very, very, very minimum, Michael will spend a very lengthy amount of time detailing how he can help you with that problem, because that is what Michael does. He's really super great. And on that note, I'm really sorry, everyone, but we are going to have to cut it short. There are a few questions which we didn't get to, and I apologize. Maybe I shouldn't have done an intro at the beginning. We could have had 2 more minutes. But nonetheless, thanks again, guys, for sticking around. We had a lot of people asking great questions. We had a lot of people at this webinar, and it just goes to show us that, people enjoy Storyboard Pro, and we're here to help you and really develop the product to meet your needs, whether you work for a studio or you're independent working from home. So that being said, send us your emails with any further questions. You can also upload your questions to our forum. We'll definitely get back to you. And this webinar is being recorded and will be online probably early next week. I will be here next week. I'm on holiday for 2 weeks. Caitlin, who is a rock star and really does a lot of our blog forums, will be here with Marc-Andre, who will also be doing really cool webinar on Storyboard Pro, and really really detailing vector files and drawing tools, and really he'll be able to answer more of your questions. As some of you know, Marc-Andre is our product manager. So that being said, peace out, guys. I'm on holiday for 2 weeks.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your great questions and for being here.